What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian Colon from House of Wrestling, and this is my review for the October 21st episode of WWE Smackdown. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notifications so that way you are notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Tonight's WWE Smackdown, you could arguably say it was to build up to the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, which is a couple weeks away, and they did that. They built it up. You had the build up for the Roman Reigns Logan Paul match. You had Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. And you had a few other things mentioned in regards to the Crown Jewel pay-per-view or premium live event in a couple weeks. But other than that, I mean, this was a fun show. A lot of the matches were pretty much fun. Outside of that, some things were okay. The Bray Wyatt stuff was very intriguing. We did have a face-off between Braun Strowman and Omos, which I'll get into a little bit later in this review. But yeah, other than that, I mean, this was a fun show. It wasn't too much into the physicality and really getting into the storylines that we've seen in the past few weeks, of course, with Crown Jewel, which being a overseas show in Saudi Arabia, usually the build up to that is very, very general. It's not anything detailed or like, okay, we got this, we're going to SummerSlam, we're going to, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, a premium live event. Like it's pretty much basic build towards those pay-per-views. So I wasn't expecting anything major, although few weeks after Crown Jewel, you do have Survivor Series, so you can see with a lot of things that played out tonight that they're building to Crown Jewel, but at the same time, they're subtly building towards the Survivor Series pay-per-view later in the month of November. So we'll see what happens. But man, had a few fun matches tonight. So before I get into those matches, I'm going to give you guys the results. We had, starting off the show, you had Solo Sikoa defeat Sheamus. We had Liv Morgan and Sonya Deville finish in a double countout, which I cannot recall the last time a match on SmackDown finished in a double countout. It has been a while, so when it happened, I was like, man, when was the last time? But granted, some people get, all technical with countouts. Oh, why did they leave it a countout? But because of Liv Morgan and the run that she's been on as far as the aggression and the physicality and just how her character is going in a direction that we don't know, but the crowd seems to be getting behind, I'm all for it. So you had that. You had Damage Control, Io Sky, and Dakota Kai defeat Shotzi Blackheart and Raquel Rodriguez. You had Rey Mysterio defeat Ludwig Kaiser to build for his match with Gunther in a couple weeks. So those are the results for tonight's WWE Smackdown. Like I said, wasn't anything like grand, but you did have fun watching it. I had fun watching it. There wasn't anything like, oh, this is boring. Like, no, this was, like I said, in all my previous reviews, WWE, ever since Triple H has taken over creative, you could say arguably after SummerSlam, the build to WWE being a more watchable product has greatly improved. Is it the best? No. There is still room to improve, but for the most part, it is a watchable show. And me personally, I'm really intrigued to see what the build is going to be towards Royal Rumble. WrestleMania, you can kind of more or less know what's going to happen. Like right now, you kind of get an idea what could happen. But Royal Rumble, that's going to be interesting because you got to build towards certain surprises and surprise entries and that whole thing. So I'm excited for that. But for the meantime, as we are in the month of October, I'm content. I'm content on what's happening, just seeing where it goes towards Crown Jewel and Survivor Series. So, like I said, the opening match, Solo Sikoa defeating Sheamus. What was interesting about this match is that normally SmackDown has their video intro, are you ready, blah, blah, blah. And it just started with Sheamus's intro and no video intro. It went into that. You had Solo Sikoa come out, and in between those entrances, you had a video of Bray Wyatt, and just you were anticipating, like, if you were watching, you were anticipating a QR code, which kind of got later, and it happened. It was like, oh, okay, that's something usual. And what was interesting was that commentary, like, really glossed over it, where they were focused on the Sheamus and Solo Sikoa match, and they never really gave it any detail or, talked about or mentioned, like, hey, this Bray Wyatt, video pops up. And like, no, they just kept on going like nothing. Like, oh, all right. Unlike the QR codes, which they kind of slightly mention at sometimes, but again, kind of, I don't know. It's interesting thing not to mention when it's the start of your show, which is pretty interesting. You had, in this match, there was a bunch of strikes and chops to start off with, which is pretty much normal with a Sheamus match as of late, ever since Clash at the Castle, that he's just been on a streak of just physical matches. You had the Brawling Brutes and the Usos at ringside. At some point in the match, Solo Sikoa hit one of the most physical hip thrusts into the stairs outside the ring while Sheamus was laying next to the stairs. That was nasty. Corey Graves did mention, like, it looked like he kind of grazed him, but he hit some force to it. It looked pretty intense. Although on replay wasn't that intense, if you know what I mean. You had they mentioned Sheamus's background growing up, and Wade Barrett mentioned it. Forgive me, it wasn't Corey Graves, it was Wade Barrett. So yeah, they mentioned Sheamus's background. Then Sheamus, at some point later on in the match, he wound up executing 16 forearm strikes, which ever since the Clash of the Castle, where I believe he executed 26 or 30 forearm strikes on Gunther, like every week he just started, all right, crowd's into it, I'm just going to keep doing more. And he didn't stop this match, so he gave 14 forearm strikes. Then after that, like, mayhem breaks out, like the Brawling Brutes and the Usos are fighting. You had Solo Sikoa and Sheamus, they're fighting. Sami Zayn tries to interfere. He gets knocked out. Sheamus does a clothesline on the top rope on both Usos. He gets back in the ring. Solo Sikoa and him are fighting. Sami Zayn tries to intervene. Solo Sikoa hits him, hits the spinning slam, 1, 2, 3. Sheamus loses. Solo Sikoa wins. And then after the match, you had the Bloodline. They attacked Sheamus. They had his arm on the steel steps. Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and Jimmy Uso, they grabbed a bunch of chairs and they just put his arm in a chair and just started hitting it. So apparently Sheamus is written off for TV for a while. Interesting events, how this played out. From the things that I read on Twitter, that seems like he was written off, which is real interesting because it does feel like that they were, mind you, they could be still leading this to a Survivor Series War Games match between the Bloodline, Sheamus, and the Brawling Brutes. Pretty interesting because it should be Roman, the Usos, and Solo versus the Brawling Brutes and someone to be named later. I hope it isn't Logan Paul, because that would be a very weird War Games match. Like, can you imagine Sheamus, Pete Dunne, and Ridge Holland and Logan Paul versus the Usos? Like, That's a weird War Games match just to think about. Like, that is a weird War Games match to put in a WWE video game. So, we'll see what happens, where this transpires next week on SmackDown. But yes, Sheamus supposedly written off on TV. Then we had a flashback from last Friday when Rey Mysterio said he quit on SmackDown and Triple H transferred him to SmackDown. Then you see earlier in the evening, you see Mysterio run into the Imperium, Kaiser, and Vinci. They're pretty much very condescending towards Rey Mysterio and, oh, look, he's here. Dominic, ran him off, alluding to that. And Rey Mysterio is like, you know what? Why don't we throw it down tonight? Forget this. Like, you're making fun of me. You're talking about how I can't beat Gunther. You know what? Let's throw it down tonight. So they booked the match. Later on, you had, like I said, you had Ludwig Kaiser versus Rey Mysterio, which is a really solid match. So then from there, we go to Bray Wyatt. Yes, they do a little recap of what he did last week, and he's backstage speaking, and one or two things about this promo that stood out. One, as he's talking, I don't know if they purposely did it, but it was very difficult to hear Bray Wyatt talk because they had his entrance theme like pretty high, that it wasn't like, most people who do audio know this, like if you have a music bed playing while someone's talking, you want it to be more in the background and the person who's talking to be in the front ground. Like, it was reverse, and you could barely make out what Bray Wyatt was talking about because the volume was so high. Like, you're just like, what is he like? I had to raise up the TV, like, okay, that's all right. Wait, okay. And of course, I know some people probably rewinded and like, okay, what was he saying, and tried to make it out, but it was real difficult to understand what Bray Wyatt said. I did get the general sense of what he was talking about, and he mentioned, I have problems. I'm glad you didn't leave me. He mentions, I will do horrible things and I won't be sorry for them. I am a servant. Now I go wherever the circle takes me. That is very interesting. That is very intriguing. And man, Bray Wyatt has everybody who is a WWE fan and a fan of Bray Wyatt literally in the palm of his hands, because in spite of the audio being loud and everything, his words and what he was saying, and going back to last week's promo and this week's promo, like Bray Wyatt, as he's talking, he's beginning to be more punctual, as opposed to what we've seen in the past, where a few things would get to the point, and then other times he would tell this long story that would come back and everything. Good stories, but it was just like, all right, he's going here, and it comes back. Now it just really, like, this was really good, and, there's a lot of questions that come out of this promo. What is the circle? Who is the circle? Who is in the circle? Horrible things? What horrible things is he going to do, and to whom? He's not going to be sorry and remorse. Like, okay, is Bray Wyatt going after someone? Like, who is he going after? Like, where is this going? And it's so intriguing. It's the curiosity is building with Bray Wyatt each and every week, and especially with this, I go wherever the circle goes. And it's like, it's really interesting. The circle. Okay, the circle of life, the circle of friends. So many things that go along with Bray Wyatt that you're just like, I gotta tune in for this. And I think that's the best thing about Bray Wyatt. And I mentioned this on last week's SmackDown, that Bray Wyatt fills the void of when Roman Reigns isn't on SmackDown. Perfect case is tonight. Roman Reigns was not on SmackDown, but Bray Wyatt was. So Bray Wyatt does come with so much intrigue, curiosity. His promos and what he does captivates people that when you hear about him, oh, he's going to be here tonight. Ooh, okay. What is Bray Wyatt going to say? What is he alluding to? What's going to happen? That is perfect storytelling, but also perfect as far as what you want your wrestler to bring to a wrestling product. That so many people are so intrigued by this man's actions and words. That is great. You want that in a wrestling. Bray Wyatt right now is checking all those boxes. So me personally, I'm really intrigued on what he means by I go where the circle goes. Of course, there's been talk of Dutch and Vincent from Ring of Honor's The Righteous reportedly being a part of Bray Wyatt's faction, that they're being mentioned to be included in his faction. You know, is he going to have a faction? Is it just some figments of his imagination? Like, so many questions, man, and it's so fun. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see where this goes, and I want to see next week what he's going to do and what he's going to bring. And you know, is this going to, you know, now thinking about it, is this going to be something that leads to a Survivor Series War Games match? Or just a regular Survivor Series match? Pretty interesting to think about. So you had that, and then backstage, you got the Bloodline. They're celebrating the beatdown and of Sheamus, Sami Zayn, Jimmy and Jey Uso, Solo. They're celebrating. Solo's just real intense. Jimmy Uso's laid back, and him and Sami, they do that stupid handshake that's so freaking hilarious. And Jey Uso's like, man, you know, that's cool. And, you know, talking about Logan Paul, and man, let's just let Logan Paul, blah, blah, blah. And Jey Uso just snaps. And he's like, yeah, I'm the hothead. And no, he talks about us. We're going to, and it's like, oh boy. So they're continuing the story with Jey Uso being the hothead, which is so fun. And Sami Zayn is trying to prevent Jey Uso from not pissing off the tribal chief Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns is not there. Paul Heyman is not there. So they're just like, man, you see Jimmy Uso and Sami Zayn, and they're just like, oh man. And Sami Zayn's like, he looks at Jimmy, he's like, he's serious, isn't he? And Jimmy Uso's like, I guess so. So these guys are so entertaining, man. This is so fun to watch everything that's unfolding with the Bloodline and Sami Zayn. Then we get Liv Morgan versus Sonya Deville. This match, like, it went back and forth. Sonya, she was taunting Liv to begin the match. There was a nasty knee strike that Sonya did on Liv Morgan, which throughout this match, it was mostly knee strikes. Like, that's something I'm starting to notice in WWE, that there's a lot of these matches are doing a lot of knee strikes and chops. Honestly, it's not only WWE. It's actually in most professional wrestling companies that you see this type of maneuvers, knee strikes, and chops being the predominant moves as far as transitioning from major moves and stuff like that. So yeah, you had knee strikes. Then as Sonya Deville's beating down Liv Morgan, like she's laughing, like it seems like she's enjoying the beatdown. Mind you, she came out dressed similar to Harley Quinn. There's been talk that she might be included in Bray Wyatt's faction, so you have that tease and assumption surrounding her. Her makeup was kind of smeared, her lipstick. It was just really interesting to see her mannerisms and just the demeanor that she had. It was just like, man, like, is she eventually going to join Bray? Like, it was never alluded to it on commentary, but just the mannerisms kind of alluded to it. It was similar to what they did with Alexa Bliss, which is another name that's being mentioned with Bray Wyatt's faction. So yeah, she was laughing while she was just getting beat the hell. Like, she was getting the beating, man. And then she looks at Sonya Deville and she's like, come on, hit me, hit me, hit me. And like I said, she's enjoying getting beat. Like, you enjoy Sonya Deville beating you down. Like, she keeps going, and then they go outside. They're fighting back and forth, and the refs just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Eventually, the ref counts them out. It's a double count out. And the crowd's booing, but Liv Morgan is like in another place where she just wants to inflict pain. And she grabs about 6 chairs, throws them in the ring. She sets them up. She puts Sonya Deville on the top turnbuckle. Sonya Deville's trying to not, allow Liv Morgan to do whatever move she's trying to do. Liv Morgan hits her one more time. Eventually, she does a superplex onto 6 chairs. Yes, 6 chairs on Sonya Deville, and she just starts laughing. And I don't know. This is another character build that I'm really interested in as far as where this is going. You got Bray Wyatt's character build. You have Jey Uso, being the hothead. You got Liv Morgan. You don't know where her mind is going. Of course, over on Raw, you got Dexter Lumis and his whole thing. Quite a few intriguing characters that you don't know what's going to happen next, but you want to stay in tune to see what happens next. So yeah, I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Liv Morgan, because wherever this character is going and what's it's evolving into has a lot of curiosity. There's a lot of assumptions and alluding to Bray Wyatt. So maybe it's not going in that direction, but we just got to stay tuned to see if it's going in that direction. Then we get a promo from LA Knight. We get a video package of the Viking Raiders and what sounds like Sarah Logan. Kind of know where this is going. Then we get a face-off between Strowman and MVP and Omos. Omos and Strowman, basically, they're going to be wrestling at Crown Jewel. The height difference between Braun Strowman and Omos, man, you put those guys together, it's like, whoa, like, this is crazy. You got Omos pretty much like this tall, and you got Strowman looking up at him like this. Like, he's looking up like... And I can't recall a person where Strowman had to look up at a significant height. Like, maybe the Big Show, to a certain extent, where it was, kind of like that, but like this was like Omos and Strowman were like this. Like, that was insane. And then Omos shoved Strowman out the ring, which, I mean, it's impressive, but like the build to that shove was just like, all right. And I don't know, man. It just seems like WWE, ever since WrestleMania 1, it does feel like they keep trying to rehash the feeling and intrigue of Andre the Giant and Big John Studd rivalry. Of course, you had Kane and The Undertaker, but they never put them in a position that felt like Andre and Big John Studd. Like, Kane and The Undertaker had their separate, like, type of feud that, like Andre and Big John Studd, as far as tall, big guys, was like, storyline A, and Kane and The Undertaker was like storyline B. But yeah, this, honestly, I don't really care about this match. It is what it is. I think it's too soon. And by that, Strowman has come back. He's got, some momentum with, the victories, and to have him go against Omos, who's been off TV and really hasn't had momentum. So it's like you have a guy who has momentum and a guy who really hasn't had momentum. And when he was here, he lost momentum after they broke up him and AJ Styles as a tag team. So it's just like, all right, I'll watch it, but I'm not really invested in it. And That's unfortunate because Omos does have a lot of potential, and Strowman, he's, for the most part, he is fun, with the exception of the choo 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 that was going around when he would run and do the shoulder block. But I don't know, it just doesn't get me there. Then they replayed last week McIntyre and Cross fighting outside of Karrion Kross's car accident, which is pretty interesting because if he was in a car accident and he got attacked, that's kind of like he's putting more damage on Karrion Kross. Like, they never mentioned that. Then when you get a backstage interview, Drew McIntyre with Caleb Braxton, and he basically says it has to end at Crown Jewel. So we're getting Drew McIntyre and Karrion Kross in a steel cage match at Crown Jewel. Hopefully it's the end. These guys had a pretty decent match. For the most part, the strap match was okay. I don't know. This is another feud where it's all right, where this is going. Like I said, this SmackDown was really had some fun matches, but everything else outside of it was just like, with the exception of the Bloodline and Sami Zayn, like, other than that, it was just like, yeah, all right. We get a backstage segment of Logan Paul arriving at the arena to a chorus of boos. After that, we get the Damage Control versus Raquel Rodriguez and Shotzi Blackheart match. This was a decent match. This was a fun match. Shotzi did a freaking flipping cannonball in the corner, which normally we've seen the cannonball by Samoa Joe, Willow Nightingale. I'm trying to think of another wrestler. I think Deonna Purrazzo. A few women's wrestlers in Impact have done it. It's a move that most people do. I don't mind that move being mimicked by a lot of people because it is a pretty fantastic move to do, and it is effective in any match that I've seen it in. So her doing she did the cannonball, but like flipped and like very impressive. I liked it. Really good move in the turnbuckle. They did mention Quincy Elliott, which he will be hosting the NXT Halloween Havoc tomorrow night with Shotzi Blackheart, and they gave a brief, subtle description of who Quincy Elliott is, which I do like that they're doing. That now in WWE, especially when NXT people go up to WWE and vice versa, that they do give a brief background of the wrestler's history in NXT, which they hardly, if ever, did in previous years of NXT. So that is a good sign that they are educating the fans who more than likely probably aren't watching NXT and like, oh, maybe I should check it out. So you had that. Then you had a spinning DDT by Io Sky on Raquel, which was a nasty. Io Sky, man. That girl can go. So you had that. Then you had Raquel Rodriguez indirectly sent Dakota Kai to break up the pin of Shotzi Blackheart and Io Sky, which is actually, it was pretty cool how it transpired, and the way commentary explained it was even really cool. Like it felt fluid. It didn't feel like, oh my god, she messed up a move. Like she was going to do like a power bomb type move, and Dakota got out of it, and her momentum wound up going to break up the pin on Shotzi Blackheart over Io Sky. So you had that. Then back and forth, Io Sky and Dakota Kai, Bailey, they wound up getting the upper hand. Io Sky performed a driver and a moonsault for the pin. Damage Control wins. There was no post-match interference or anything like that, which I'm all for Damage Control and what they're doing as women tag team champions, but it does feel like the WWE's women's roster is like very thin, where, you know, you have Selena Vega as a manager, which, you know, we see in a backstage segment, but she's not wrestling. You got Lacey Evans that we haven't seen. You know, Doudrop, I don't know if she's injured. I can't remember if she is injured or not. So you haven't had her. You haven't had Nikki Ash. Let's see. You haven't had Dana Brooke. You haven't had... Man, who else haven't you had? Like Natalia? You haven't had a lot of women on WWE programming, which is really, really interesting. So hopefully that turns around after Survivor Series and going into the Royal Rumble, because there is going to be a women's Royal Rumble match along with the men. So you need to fill spots for those 30 slots in the Royal Rumble. So see what happens from now till the Royal Rumble. But yeah, WWE's women's roster is very like thin. Then we get a backstage interview with Ronda Rousey, and Kayla Braxton's like, hey, are you gonna, you know, do an open challenge? He's like, no, I'm not doing an open challenge. And this is what Ronda Rousey basically said to the fans: I owe them nothing. I don't win for them. They want their favorites to win. Next week, when I feel like it, I'll do the open challenge. So there you have it. Ronda Rousey is a heel, I guess. I'm all for it because, like, let's face it, like, she does get a, you know, more boos, and sometimes they want to present her as a face, and sometimes it just doesn't mesh. So, I mean, if she, you know, she has had interviews where, you know, she's mentioned that the WWE fans, you know, they don't know what they want. They're kind of fickle, which, that's her opinion. It's like, whatever, you know, these wrestlers are going to say whatever they want to say. I don't care. So it kind of goes in a line with that, which, all right, if you have that history that she's mentioned about WWE fans, and the fans aren't really receiving her in a positive, you know, or cheering for her or anything like that, and nothing's positive coming out of it, you know what? Go in this direction. So I'm all for it. Let's see what happens next week with the open challenge and who accepts that open challenge. Could it be a Charlotte Flair? I don't know. We'll see. Then we get a video package from, it's Bray Wyatt and Howdy, and you do get a QR code. And in this QR code, it goes to a psychiatric character evaluation. It's like an agreement that he never missed. It has Bray Wyatt's, it has his birthday, and I believe, do I have it here? Yes, I do. I have it here. So it is a psychological psychiatric evaluation. There's a phone number, and when you mention that number, it's like, oh, I didn't do it. So again, we're continuing with this QR code, because, man, that QR code is genius by the WWE, because it's so, it keeps the fans interested and invested, because it's literally like a wrestling scavenger hunt. Okay, what does this code mean? Ooh, okay, let me post it. Ooh, what's the background behind this and everything? And Ryan Satin like had a whole thread upon a thread of just a breakdown of the QR codes leading up to Bray Wyatt's return. So this was pretty interesting. You know, Howdy, there was an image of a hat and a face, which the face did look like a mask. It's really interesting. Who's behind the mask? Who's Howdy? Where is this going to go with Bray Wyatt? And again, Bray Wyatt is the most intriguing and just popular wrestlers right now. Like, you want to see what he does next. You don't know what he's going to do next, but you want to see what he does next. And, with Bray Wyatt, it's kind of like he's kind of taken like the Rowdy Piper quote from the 80s. Just when you think you have the answers, he changes the question. And I think that's what Bray Wyatt is doing with this since he's returned. Like we have the answer, but he's changing the question. And just what's happening, like you don't know what's going to happen next. And okay, who's Howdy? Who's Bray Wyatt's circle? Who's within his circle? Is it a circle of friends? A circle of light? Like what? That's what it is. What is this? What is this? Where is it going? We know why, or actually, to some extent, we don't know why. So it's just, who, what, when, why, where is this? Man, Bray Wyatt is the man, and he is the saving grace of SmackDown when Roman Reigns isn't there, and Roman Reigns wasn't there tonight. And mind you, that's 2 weeks already. Not bad, man. Not bad storytelling with Bray Wyatt. It doesn't feel like what it was before. It's not bad. Then you get a backstage segment with Legado del Fantasma and Selena Vega. Basically mention their unbreakable force. And they'll begin their legacy by destroying Hit Row. Then we cut to Hit Row backstage, and you got B-Fab, Adonis, and Top Dollar. And B-Fab's like, you know what? I got an idea. They walk off, so something's going to happen. Again, is Hit Row going to get more members? Or, are they going to get another member? What have you? What's going to happen? Because it is outnumbered, because you have 3 members of Legado El Fantasma, and you have 2 Hit Row members, male members. You do have B-Fab and Selena Vega. So there is a mismatch as far as numbers. So do we get another member to Hit Row? We'll see. Then we get Rey Mysterio versus Ludwig Kaiser. Man, this was a fun match. It was back and forth with Kaiser starting off. You had a lot of Eddie chants. You had a nasty kick to the head that Rey Mysterio executed on Ludwig Kaiser. You had Rey Mysterio. He missed on the outside, and then there was like a clothesline or what have you. Then after that, Eddie or Rey Mysterio, he's outside by the timekeepers section, and he's on the ground, and you see Gunther and Vinci. They approach him. Rey Mysterio grabs a chair, and he throws it at Gunther. Gunther hits it. It bounces back on Rey. He sells it like, oh my God, he got hit. Oh my God, I got hit. The ref sees it. He kicks out Gunther and Vinci, and they have mentioned, hey, Rey Mysterio's doing a little lie, cheating, and stealing, and stuff like that. So gets back in the ring, winds up doing a 619, then a splash. 1, 2, 3. He wins. Again, this is building to the Rey Mysterio Gunther Intercontinental title match in 2 weeks, which that match should be a banger. Rey Mysterio matches against giants are fun, entertaining. He does get the piss beat out of him, but again, they're fun and entertaining, and he does make it entertaining where, okay, he's gonna get beat, but then there's certain points in the match where it's like, are they gonna get, like, is he, like, man, is he gonna win? Is he gonna win? Is he gonna win? And somewhat he doesn't, but I don't know. Could Rey Mysterio give Gunther his first loss? I don't know. We gotta see. Then they mentioned that next week SmackDown will be on FS1. So for those of you who are flipping through the channels next week, be reminded that it is on FS1. So I'm going to include that in the little, either this side or this side, whatever side it's on. I'm messing with you, man. So yeah, it is going to be on SmackDown FS1. Then we get a promo by Logan Paul. They mention that he's training by Shawn Michaels. He starts mentioning about the hard cam, and I don't mind insider terms when it's people that wrestle regularly, But with Logan Paul, and he kept on mentioning it twice, trying to sound cool, and it didn't come off that way. It really came off somewhat obnoxious and like, all right, you're talking to the hard cam. All right, is it a bigger cam? And I know some people will have that question: is it a bigger cam or what? What have you? So as he's talking, he's mentioning, what would happen if Logan, if I beat Roman Reigns with one knockout punch, turn the bloodline into putty or something like that. And as he's talking, Jey Uso just comes out of nowhere and beat the hell out of him. Like, he's beating him and everything. He super kicks him. Sammy comes out. He's trying to convince Jey Uso, leave the ring. After he's trying to convince, Sammy's trying to convince Jey Uso turns around and gets, Logan Paul gets his upper hand. Then he just hits him, knocks him out, walks out, and Sami Zayn is selling it. And they're like, man, what if Logan Paul gets, a lucky knockout punch and defeats Roman Reigns? And it is for the WWE Championship. So they are selling that aspect that Logan Paul just needs one lucky punch to beat the Roman Reigns, and he could get it. So yeah, tonight's SmackDown was very interesting. In some ways, it's something that I didn't expect by the pacing and just, somewhat the backstage segments. The wrestling's like lately, ever since Triple H has taken over, like the wrestling has been really spot on. But the backstage segments, I really didn't anticipate them going in the way that they did, except for the Bray Wyatt stuff. Bray Wyatt, like I said, man, that guy is a saving grace when Roman Reigns is not on SmackDown. That's 2 weeks in a row where he's had the most intriguing segment, and you want more. And like I said, he gives you an answer, but then in a way he changes the question, which when you get an answer for that question, it goes into a different answer. And just this whole fun scavenger hunt thing, which is so fun and really interested to see who's howdy. What's Bray Wyatt's circle? Who's in that circle? He goes where the circle leads him. There's so much more there to unpack in the next coming week. So I'm looking forward to that. But this is my review for the October 21st episode of WWE Smackdown. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notifications so that way you're notified when House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I'm out.